Welcome to the Infuse Compassion podcast, hosted by me, Amy Quisenberry.
And me, Mark Carpenter.
We are on a mission to make this world a kinder place for us all by bringing healthier human connection to communities, families, and organizations of all types and sizes.
Our goal is to create stronger relationships, more inspired teams, increased trust, and improved results.
So let's get started with more ways to infuse compassion into our world. Welcome back, Compassionators, to another episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. Boy, do we have a guest for you today. I'm going to turn it over to my good buddy, Mark, to do the introductions.
Thank you so much. And I'm honored to be able to introduce my friend, Greg Stevens. And so I'll put that up front. Greg and I have known each other for 15 or so years, quite a number. And so let me give you a little background on Greg. Greg Stevens is a communications consultant and executive coach. He's a professional speaker, facilitator, and he's the author of the book, Build New Bridges, The Art of Restoring Impossible Relationships. And that's what we're going to talk to him a lot about today. He holds a business degree from Baylor University and is a certified professional behavior analyst, a master certified trainer, and a corporate executive coach. Greg has worked with numerous Fortune 500 companies and national organizations, and he uses his 25 years of practical business experience in sales and marketing with professional sports organizations, advertising agencies, technology companies, small businesses, and the healthcare industry, as well as government agencies, to help make meaningful work. His purpose is to empower and transform individuals and corporations to take the ordinary and make it extraordinary. He's based in the Austin, Texas area. And Greg, we are thrilled to have you on the Infuse Compassion podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Mark and Amy. So happy to be here. This is going to be a fun day.
Oh, this is always a great conversation that we have here on our podcast. And I think this is going to be fantastic to have it with you. I want to start with the title of your book and give us a little background around that idea of impossible relationships, of restoring impossible relationships. Because I think a lot of people, when they hear impossible relationships, they think, well, there's no restoring of those. There's nothing you can do about those impossible relationships. So give us a little background on how you see that perspective about impossible relationships, and why did you get into this work about restoring impossible relationships?
Well, I'm just like you. When I first, when I released the book, I really want people to think of the conversations that they think this is just an impossible relationship. It could never work. And everyone seems to have one or two. So I figure this would actually reach everyone at some point, but it's a lie. It's not true. It's a limiting belief that's not true. And that's part of the definition of what an impossible relationship is. And the reason I called it that was because I had a list of, when I started teaching Crucial Conversations, Mark, you're a master trainer just like I am in Crucial Conversations. And when I started teaching it, I thought, I want to be the type of leader that practices what they teach. So I made a list of all my incomplete relationships and actually went out and cleaned up every one of them. And I had a list of 36 people. It took me 2.5 years. And in that time, I knew that some of them just seemed impossible to me. Like there's no way this will ever be restored. And time again, I was proved wrong. And as I started teaching and diving deep with people, I found that we could actually lead people to have these conversations the same way. What they once thought was impossible becomes possible once you have the skill and ability to do it. But most people don't take the time to learn the skill. They have aha moments and trainings. And that's one of the things I loved about Crucial Conversations. People would have these aha moments, these breakthrough moments. And then I'd come back and see them later and nothing had really happened. And what I found was a breakthrough or an insight is not permanent until you make it permanent. You've got to practice it. And what is impossible becomes possible when you have the skills to do something and you practice it. So that's why I called it that. There's hope. And each time I teach a class or I work with people in my master team programs, people have restoration of relationships they never thought could happen. And that's the biggest joy that I have in life, is seeing that week after week after week with the people I work with.
That's
So
awesome.
this is so powerful, because there's, I've spoken to a lot of people, I've experienced this as well, and it's this regret. The sitting in regret of feeling powerless to make something better, to change the outcome of something that you may have thought, I'm just going to throw this away because I don't know how to fix it. So I think when I think of the impossible relationships, I think of throwaway relationships. And to hear your story of 36 relationships over 2.5 years, here is my question, Greg. How did your life change as a result of that work?
Thank you for the question. And everything changed because I didn't hold on to past grievances or pains. I found my complaints about things go away and people go away. The biggest advantage was it was a weight off my shoulders. I feel like I could move through life so much faster. The anger from those relationships was gone. It's funny because today on some of those, when I would have visceral feelings that I was almost getting sick when I saw someone, I felt love for them afterwards. Something that I never thought was possible actually showed up, and it happened again and again and again. And it doesn't mean I'm best friends with all the people. It just means I got it cleaned up. Also, I find many times some of them were one and done. One person I had to go back to 7 different times. So there's no perfection in doing this type of work. You just have to keep getting back up and trying again. And when I tell people, well, one person I had to go back to 7 different times, they said, well, why was that person so difficult? And I always look at them and I go, why do you think it was the other person? Because it really comes down to me. What am I doing here? And one of the things I found when I led in correctly, when I practiced what I was teaching, something amazing happens, because the behavior that person is left with is their own, not mine. And so what happens is that's the convicting force. People begin to look at their behavior when they can't blame you anymore. But there's a quote I have in all my speeches that I put, and it's, everything in my life I create, promote, or allow. And my responsibility lies in all my relationships. I'm in charge. If it's bad, I created it to be bad at one place. And I've even had relationships where I've gone back and cleaned it up on my end. They weren't ready for it. And I just said, you know what? I understand it's too hurtful, and I never meant to do the things that you felt I did. I apologize. And if you ever want to talk again, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Weeks later, that person tends to call back, because that behavior, they look at what happened during that instance. They can't think of it then. They have to get away from it and actually chew on it a little while, digest it, see what happens. And then they start to look at their behavior. And that's when people go, well, maybe I didn't show up as my best.
So, Greg, in your work with people in this concept, what is it that keeps people from stepping into restoring those impossible relationships? And how do you get people over those hurdles?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The thing that I think has it where people don't want to do it, they don't know how. We know that, Mark. They just don't know how. No one's ever taught them how to go in and do this. So the other thing, the impossible relationship, I consider 4 elements. The first, it's a limiting belief because it's not true. The second thing is that we have experience with that person that it's not going to go well. We already know. If I know something, I'm right about it, and I know this isn't going to go any other way. Both parties had explosive emotions in that type of frame, in that context. And when I say explosive, it could be yelling or it could be completely shutting down and walking away. And the other piece of that is that neither party has the skill sets to hold that conversation. But what's beautiful is if one person learns the skill, you don't even have to have that other person have to know how. Once you learn the skill, you can actually become responsible for your communication, and it shows up different. And so many people, when they come to class, they have that knowledge, but they also have their past experience, and they're like, well, it won't work here. How do you know? You haven't tried it with the new skills. That's like saying, I can't cut down 100 trees. I've tried it before. I have an axe, but what if I gave you a chainsaw? Well, I don't know how to work a chainsaw. What if I put the oil and gas in and cranked it up for you? I bet you could get 100 trees in a day. But that's just it. We don't think in those terms. We still think we have the axe when we have a skill set that we haven't practiced and tried.
When you've got people that do have this skill set, what else is it that might keep them from stepping into that? Even if they've got the skills, and as I'm kind of pointing back to some of those limiting beliefs. How do you get people beyond some of those limiting beliefs once they've got the skills to actually step into that conversation?
Well, I've always said the moment you believe you're right, you should ask more questions. Most people don't ask questions that when they know they're right, they're not looking for answers. They've got to be right about it. And many times we have to be right about the situation because I'm going to be honest, our ego can take over. And it does not want to die, and it will take over to say, you're right about how that person is. Otherwise, what have you been doing the last 2 years that you haven't talked to them? That's the other thing. What if I just wasted? I've talked to people, they haven't talked to someone in 7 years. And then they go back, they have the conversation, and it goes amazing. And they're like, oh my gosh, I lost all this time. That's the other thing. When you have a new reality shows up, you have to be responsible for the reality you created for the past in the past.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, just trying to get somebody to the table to have a conversation, like the individual that he is listening to this episode right now. What can they do to get themselves ready to have this conversation?
Well, there's a couple things. I think the first thing you got to do is take responsibility, because if you're going to go in and have the conversation, there's a structure to it. But my structure is you always begin with your best intent and you lay that out there. You don't leave it in their idea to think about it. You say, my reason, my motive for doing this is this. You lay that out. And then the next thing you do is you own your responsibility. So I want to come in and develop a relationship that I feel is broken. I really would like to clean this up with you. And I want you to know I haven't spoken up in the past about this. I've avoided you. I've talked about you behind your back. I've done X, Y, Z. I own it all. Because when you own that side of the street, you're leading by example. It allows the space for others to take responsibility. And what I found is when you're sincere about that and you list every point that you're really responsible for, what shows up is a very different person on the other end, because all of a sudden they're like, this is different. This person just took responsibility for what they did. There's one gentleman I had a conversation with years ago, and I was with a group of people, and we were, no one liked the way this person was taking the organization. He was new. These people had been here a long time ago. They'd really built up the organization, and they felt he wasn't being fair, but everyone was talking about him. No one was talking to him. And I caught myself doing the same thing. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm not practicing what I teach people. So I just called him up and said, hey, I've been talking, and he had the ability to fire me, let me go, whatever. And I said, I just want you to know, I've been talking about you behind your back. And here's the exact things I've told other people. I'm sorry. I will never do that again. And I understand you have the ability to, fire me right now, and that's your prerogative. That's not what I want. But I can promise you, if anything happens in the future, I will talk to you face to face, and I won't talk about people to others behind your back. And there's a dead silence. And he said, Greg, it really surprises me that you would do that. But it doesn't surprise me that you'd clean it up. And what was interesting was, for the next 2 to 3 years, every time I walked into a room, and I'm going to say for the next 2, 3 years, I had a lot of different conversations with him, and I never got what I wanted. Not one time with that person. But when I walked into a room, I was the first one he'd walk over to, shake my hand. There was a respect there, and there was a complete freedom to be able to say what I needed to. I understood. I made a choice. I decided to be there, but I was able to speak my truth respectfully. I think that's key.
Wow. And the way you show up, when I hear your story, the bravery that it takes to say, I'm not going to be attached to the outcome, but I'm just going to own, as you say, my side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of advice would you give the person who is not, because at the company that I work for, we have something that's similar to this. It's we call it cleaning up and restoring the relationships. Okay. And a lot of times people get stuck in but the other person. And that's real, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's real.
Yeah.
What advice do you have to tell the person, again, that's listening to this episode and just going, I want so bad, but what about,
Yeah.
what do you tell that person?
Well, the but is, you've just given that person all your power. Your power was meant for you. The other person didn't ask for it. You just gave it to them, and they do not know how to use your power. It wasn't designed for them. It was designed for you. But when you own your stuff, you take your power back. They're no longer the problem, because I've already looked. Everything in my life I create, promote, or allow. I created this by not speaking up. I created this, or I allowed this to go on longer than I spoke about it, and then I stopped speaking about it. I gave up on my principles. And that's just it. Will there be a repercussions? Absolutely. Good and bad. I'm going to say what I found is, typically, because any action you take is going to have both what we consider positive and negative consequences, no matter what it is. I found the consequences of being honest with people and respectful tend to win out in the end. Doesn't mean you always get your way, just like with that other gentleman I told you. He didn't fire me, but over the next couple of years, I was frustrated many times, but I always had an outlet to go talk to him face to face and speak my truth respectfully. And every time I did, I felt like the complaint went away, because I hadn't given him that power anymore. And it's hard to see if you've never done it. I didn't know it until I started doing it. And those were the things that kept showing up for me. But that's the manifestation of being honest and truthful in all of your relationships as you can. And I feel like anyone else does. That's another thing I need everyone to hear. I am not perfect. I still slam my shin against the verbal, emotional, credenza or something. I slam my toes sometimes. Like, what did I just do? But I will say this: I'm a better communicator this year than I was last year. And I can say that consistently. And what happens when you string 24 years of that together? Being better than you were the last year, better than you were the last year a little bit. And that's what we're on a journey here around, how do I improve as a human being? And it's always learning. And that's the juicy part. What I can do now in a conversation is so much more than I could do 24 years ago. But it didn't just happen overnight.
Yeah. Greg, I'm going to take a little different twist on this. And our listeners need to know that we don't prepare Greg for these questions. They just kind of come to our brains and we start throwing them at him. I want to take this from, I've got an impossible relationship, to, I don't want to have impossible relationships. So what advice could you give to people about how do you keep from building impossible relationships? How do you keep your relationships from becoming impossible?
Yeah, I'm going to suggest the first thing is you got to get the skills. You've got to learn the skills. You can't, it's like you can't get out on the interstate going 75 miles an hour without learning to drive. I mean, if you can, but you're going to have an accident. So, but once you learn the skills, you can get on a raceway and go very fast with some of the best drivers in the world when you understand that. So it's a skill set you have to develop. But I'd also say the goal doesn't need to be, I don't want to have these impossible relationships, because I believe that you can never control another person. And many times those relationships are there to build you. So what you thought this shouldn't happen, one of the things I found is I'm getting prepared for something bigger down the line. And many times I've sat there and went, this isn't fair. Yeah, life's not fair. It's growing you, and growth typically comes in some level of pain. But when I can start to see, you know what, I don't like this, but I know how to deal with it. What am I going to learn in it? It changes it. But also the other piece is most people are focusing on the conversation or the interaction. I'm focusing on what's after the interaction, because the juice is worth the squeeze, but you've got to squeeze it before you're going to be able to get into it. So you can't look at the pain. If you want to run a marathon, you're not looking at, oh, I got to get up at 5 every morning. I got to do this. I got to do this. You'll never get out of the bed. But if you look at what you want, what is it I want? What am I doing there? All of a sudden, you get in the gym, or you put your tennis shoes on and you run and you eat right and you start doing those things. But it's a consistent piece that has to happen over time. So I've picked this one up lately. I've used it in a lot of different areas, but you can't bake a good lasagna in 10 minutes. It's going to have to take time. You can't, if you want something worthwhile, it's going to take time. And that's hard for people to hear, because I've condensed my program to 20 weeks. I don't see, and I can tell you it's baked at 18 to 20 weeks. And I don't know anyone else who can do it faster. But that's 24 years of pushing it in. But most people, 20 weeks, I'm not going to do that. But you think about the results you can get the rest of your life, the relationships that are going to fulfill you. And that's what you need to look at.
And I love that perspective of the long-term outcome. What are we getting from this? If you would, since you just brought that up, talk to us about how you help people develop these skills. You talked about that 20-week program there. What does that look like? What are the different offerings that you have that help people in restoring impossible relationships?
Well, we have a master team program, which I call it a master team because it's a cross between a mastermind, a master class, group coaching, and individual coaching, all wrapped into one. And during that time, people come in, and we work with executives on this, and they walk in with a list of relationships they want to improve, clean up, or complete. That's a big one, completing relationships as well. And people sometimes think, completing, does that mean you never see them again? It may. Or it may mean you work next to them every day, but that thing doesn't bother you anymore. But it's complete around it. And we don't throw you in the deep end. We get to know each other, but the whole class is designed. How I run the class is how they're going to take it out into the world every week. So it's a 20-week program where people come in and we talk about what respect looks like to each other. And we go through that, and they start to have these conversations they've never had. How many people have had a respect conversation with your boss or your direct reports? Starting out, what agreements are we going to put in place? How do you acknowledge people correctly? Start to build, like Stephen Covey says, put those emotional credits in the bank account. Put that, build that up. And then we talk about managing emotions, all the different things. We actually let people go through crucial conversations online, and then they do their work there. And then we come back and I coach from what their questions are. And we make sure that they're founded in those skill sets as we do that. And then we actually take it that level of where's the relationship, the things that you're not going to get from sitting in a class or reading something or going into your head. You've got to get in that interaction. And each week we have a different game we play. So the games are get you out there, but you're doing it, and people come back, and the insights they have are just, they're heavy, and it's just like it washes over them as a team. It's really amazing. And we do that for executives, and we do in those classes, they're between 2 and 12 people. And then we're just starting an emerging leaders class we feel like we want to help the next generation of leaders, because we want leaders that have character and are speaking their truth. And so we're looking at young adults from 21 to 28 years old, and we're teaching them those skills, but designed for today's youth, the younger adults, with the technology that they have, all the different things that they have, but they're still basic human behaviors you're going to have to learn. But we do it from a place of teaching that younger mindset and looking ahead in their career rather than looking back.
Awesome.
This is so powerful. I have another question for you. I want you talk about empowering and transforming corporations to take the ordinary to extraordinary. I'd love to hear an example of what you were able to see a company go through, of where they were. They went through one of your courses, whatever the experience was, and what you were able to see them achieve as a result.
Yeah. Well, I can't list any clients, but I will say I had one this year that I talked to in December. We started in January, and he was the plant manager at a steel plant, aluminum steel plant. And he went through the program. And when he got with me, it was interesting because he said he was great. I really enjoyed talking with him. And we went through and found out, I said, you know why we're talking? He said, yeah, I think. I said, well, here's what the feedback is that people in your plant believe you're a tyrant. No one wants to be around you. And I laid out all the steps that had happened, and he was hurt because but we sat down. I said, I know that's not your intent. And I said, let's talk about this. And so he started to unravel some of the things. And I said, well, how do you define respect? He said, well, when people don't speak their mind, I find it disrespectful. But how many people feel comfortable speaking their mind to their boss? So what was happening was he was getting out in his workforce on the plant, and people wouldn't give him feedback, and he thought he was helping them. Well, he didn't see that his voice went up, that it felt demeaning to them, that they felt like he was a bully, and he was anything but, because his intention was to help. They saw a tyrant, but his intent was to help. But when we started to show him his behavior and start to look at that, it was interesting because we had our final conversation with the CEO of the organization, him and the HR director. And they all came in, and there was a couple of instances where the plant normally would have probably been shut down for a couple of weeks, and his team came together and pulled it back, saving millions of dollars in downtime. And so the CEO was so happy about that. But the HR director, she said, I was skeptical. She goes, but I've never seen an entire culture change in 4 months. I was never expecting that. And it was like, I didn't know she was going to say that. I sat there and went, really? She said, you walk in today, it is completely different than 4 months ago. But it didn't just happen. It happened because he went out and took the coaching. That's a hard thing for some executives, heads of plants to do, because everyone's looking at them. You've got to be courageous. You've got to be vulnerable. But he went and he started creating relationships, and it was interesting. Everything began to change because the leader changed how he did things. And it was interesting because 3 months after he was done, he said, I want to call you. He goes, I know we're done, but he said, thank you so much. And I said, don't thank me. You did the work. Doesn't matter how much or well I coach, people still have to do the work.
Oh, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
That's fantastic. Wow. Well, Greg, how can people find out more about you? Where can people find more of Greg Stevens?
Just go to alignment-resources.com. And don't forget the dash, but otherwise I think you get some type of car service trying to get some alignment. So alignment-resources.com. And we have work on there about, about our master teams, the explanation. I don't even think we have the emerging leaders up there yet. We're going to be working on that. Well, by the time this airs, we will. So that's where you can go. And just reach out to me or a gentleman named Noah Boughton. His information's on there as well. And love to listen to you and help you. That's another thing. If you contact us, we're not going to sell you anything. You just need to know that, because what we do, you have to want to do. So it's something that you have to be ready for. And not everyone's ready for it when we start to talk to them. So sometimes we actually direct people toward other things that they may want to do before they come in and talk to us as well.
Fantastic. Greg, we always ask our guests one final question as we wrap up. We love our listeners. We refer to them as our compassionators. They've opted into compassion. So what is one tip that you can give to our compassionators to infuse compassion into their lives this week?
This comes from a friend of mine, Dan Mormon. And Dan and I, we have some really amazing conversations. But when you feel that stress coming on, when you feel that you're mad at the other person, take a breath and ask yourself, is my heart open or is it closed? And really look at that and think about, because if your heart is closed, you're not going to be at your best. And sometimes we don't want to be on our best in that moment, it seems, but it costs us later. And we don't understand, because we don't understand emotional accounting. We get emotional and we go with that, whether it's attack or withdrawal. But if I can find it in me to open my heart to understand there's a hurting person just across from me, no matter what they're doing, that's pain. Or it's fear. And remember this, fear always distorts. It's a distorted view. So if that fear is there for you or the other person, it's a distorted view. If you open your heart, I believe you'll see much more clearly.
Love it. Thanks so much, Greg. We so appreciate you being on and appreciate your insights, your background, and just helping us get clarity around some of those relationships that are tough. Amy, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, you have just dropped some major wisdom here. So thank you so much for the incredible work that you're doing. Folks, you know what I'm going to say. The Infuse Compassion into Companies conference is coming, and you've got to come join us. If you don't have your tickets, get your tickets. InfuseCompassion.com is our website. Check them out there. And our speaker lineup is absolutely fantastic. We've got 7 amazing speakers that are going to blow your mind, open your mind, and really change the way that you're approaching your people, your workplace. So November 14th is the conference. It's virtual. Anybody can attend. Come check us out. We'd love to see you there. Everybody, keep infusing compassion into the world. You're making a difference. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share a review and like the podcast so other compassionators can join us. Until next time, let's all do something each day to infuse compassion into the world. For more information on our guests, see the show notes. For more information on Mark and Amy, go to infusecompassion.com.